and this is just my own bias, I don't like receiving a very obvious cold DM. I never accept friend requests from people who I don't know, because why would you? Because you know what they want.
Yeah.
Right?
Dadvertising. Dadvertising. People that do the thing, run the business while waiting it. Dadvertising.
Good morning, good evening, hello.
Howdy.
How are you?
Bonjour.
Bonjour. How are you, buddy? How are you, buddy?
Really well, Alan. Thank you, mate. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling fantastic.
We're on a good vibe this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I like it when we're in a vibe. It's good. Feels like magic happens when there's a vibe in the room.
Yep.
And we need some magic today because in this scenario, we've lost everything. The business is gone. Vanished. Taken by unforeseen circumstances, and we need to start from scratch. And that's the topic for today.
Wrong one.
Not the correct one. What are you looking for?
Yeah, that's wrong.
Eerie.
That's the one I was thinking.
Eerie.
Yeah,
Eerie. That's what we need. So...
not the butterflies.
Don't give two men a soundboard.
Okay.
So, what we want to talk about today on Dadvertising. Welcome everyone listening.
Welcome.
We love having you here. If you're here, this is episode 3, and we could not thank you enough for your support just by being here this early on in the show and helping us to get this thing moving because we're really passionate about this project and we're having a lot of fun. So, we wanted to talk about what we would do if we were starting from scratch. And you see a lot of business owners do this, like your Grant Cardones and stuff. But it's sometimes feels a bit unrealistic, the stuff that they do. And it feels like they don't take into account everyday life. There seems like there's no limitations on what they would do. It's like, I would just, email my whole list and then just do all this work for free and then whatever. But most people don't have a list. All these people in America that I bought my first duplex apartment for $65,000 and now I rent it out. Like all this stuff that seems unrealistic. Yeah. So we want to bring it back to just two dudes living in the greater Sydney area in Australia. Just in 2023, 2024, how would we start our online businesses again if we had
from scratch?
Yeah, from day one to day. With the knowledge we have now, how would we do it? Because how long have you been running businesses now?
I've been full-time. It'll be 5 years in January.
And when did you start before you were full-time?
Realistically, I tried to launch an app that failed, and that's a really cool story that I'll share at some stage. But I designed and tried to launch an app that dramatically failed. But that app is one of the reasons why I am where I am today. Because I had to fail on that project. And then prior to going full time in this business and what I'm doing today, I was probably at least for 18 months, just as I had a graphic design background.
Is that what your job was?
I did a graphic design course after I left school. Yeah. Like a diploma for 18 months, an advanced diploma. And then before I started working for myself, I was actually working for a big bank in Australia, the biggest bank in Australia. Oh. If you know who that is.
Which bank?
Exactly.
Is that clever?
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Interesting. So you worked
I worked for them, and I worked in the insurance department, and I was doing nothing creative.
Sounds lame, bro.
Yeah, it was lame. It felt lame.
Good job.
Look, at the end of the day, I was appreciative and grateful I was getting paid and I was able to support my family and pay my mortgage and all the other things. But at the end of the day, I could honestly do that job not that I did, but I could honestly be drunk and do it with my eyes closed. Like I didn't need to think.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, given what I've just said, at some stage AI will take that role anyway. So it was just a repetitive sort of role. and I just didn't feel like I was expressing or utilizing my true gifts and things like that. So I needed to get out.
Yeah.
And the moment I did, then that's when everything started to really connect and whatnot. And so.
Do you ever sometimes just long for the days where you could get up and do a job, get paid, it was easy, you left work at work, and then you had your weekends, you had your evenings, or do you not?
When things get tough, absolutely. Yeah, because, even when COVID hit, it got really hard.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like, even the ability, like today we're podcasting. This afternoon I've got like a personal matter to attend to, and I've got the time to be able to just pull that time out of nowhere to like readjust my week to be there.
Yeah.
And then even tomorrow, I'm flying to the Gold Coast to do some filming for the day. So I'm filming with 2 different people. The day after that, I've actually sort of taken it as like a day off. Like I do have some calls and stuff to make, but I'm hanging out with some mates in the Gold Coast. Just,
yeah.
So yes, but there's no, yes, I miss I guess the stability of that role, of that job, and knowing that I'm going to get paid at the end of the week versus, taking on the risk of not getting paid for long extended periods of time.
Yeah.
And then coming in and having, so.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, today we're talking about what we would do if we were starting from scratch. So I'd love to ask you, Alex, how did you get started in your business when you first started? So talk me back to, because you were a chef. You're actually part of a restaurant, from my understanding, or you owned a restaurant or part-owned a restaurant or something like that. Take me back as to how you got started in the digital marketing space.
It's a good story. I tell a lot on podcasts, and I've been trying to be more concise with it. So, coming out of school, I went to uni for like 3 months, and it just was not for me. And surprise, surprise. And one of my friends was he was an apprentice chef, and he was working at a top restaurant. He was getting paid. He was cooking, which I loved. He was learning. And I was like, that makes so much more sense to me. So I went and got a chef apprenticeship. I actually worked at the Sand Hospital in Warringah. That was my first job, like cooking for like 1,000 people in the hospital kitchens for like $10 an hour. And then from there, I worked in restaurants. I got really ambitious in restaurants, kind of climbed my way through the ladder. And I went through cooking. I was head chef at one cafe, sous chef at a nice restaurant, all this other stuff. All by the time I was like 24. And then I learned the front of house side of it. Coffee, bartending, and then we started a cafe. We had a catering business, my mate and I, and then we started a cafe on the side. The catering on the side, then a cafe right around the corner here in Brookie, actually. And it was 5 days a week. It was like on a commercial estate, and so we were there 5 days, stable, job's always the same, did some catering on the weekends. I got a bit fidgety because of the nature of that venue. We couldn't really expand outside our customer base too much. So I sold him my half of the cafe, and then when Uber Eats hit and everything, he started doing Uber Eats, making these mad hamburgers, using social media, and blew it up. And now he's got 2 restaurants around here, which are crushing it, like $2 million a year in burgers.
Yeah,
he's doing great,
epic,
so good. I'm going for lunch after this to the one in Brookvale. So there you go. 2 Hungry Bears. Shout out.
Yeah, 2 Hungry Bears. I had 2 Hungry Bears.
Did you get it last week?
Yeah, I did. Yes. Yeah. No, it was epic.
Epic. So that was where I started. And then I went back to restaurants for a bit, and I worked front of house, worked my way through the fine dining space. What happened throughout that whole thing, to get back to the question, this is all context, is I let the lifestyle get me a bit. I was always quite healthy, but when it got to the higher end of hospitality and running my own cafe, I kind of let the food and the wine and the hours get to me a bit. And one of my friends at one point called me a big fat dog. And I looked at the photo, I was like, oh yeah, I've put on a lot of weight. I put on like 20 kgs. And so I started losing weight and getting really healthy. And I got hella healthy. Like I did like fasting and yoga and all sorts of stuff. And then from that, I just started making these healthy cooking videos on the internet. Fast forward, I must have answered some ad to become a coach. I went into or to like learn how to start a coaching video business. Went through the whole process, bought this coaching program where they taught you to do everything, marketing, sales, delivery, everything you need to do. And so I became like a health and nutrition coach, and I was teaching people to do these healthy cooking programs, cooking, lose weight, all that sort of thing.
That's why on your YouTube, because we manage your socials, that's why you've still got those videos that are, those videos are still trending. Like they're still getting lots and lots of views every month.
It was all my travel and cooking stuff is what I used to do.
Yep.
Back when I was more into the idea of kind of influencing, and I used to get like, I had like an olive oil company and like a tuna company send me free stuff, and I used to get like free stuff, and it was cool. Through all that, I learned to do the digital marketing thing just for my own business. And what I was never really good at was kind of retaining heaps of clients and like systemizing and selling heaps of stuff. It was all very kind of low ticket, $100 a week payment plans, that sort of thing. It was always just kind of trickling along.
Yeah.
And around the time when Ali was pregnant, basically, I had it going pretty well. I had like a network marketing business in supplements connected to it. We had a coaching program. We were doing higher ticket sales. I was kind of like surviving pretty well off it, and working with gyms as well. I did recipe books for gyms, which was mad. I did these white label recipe books. Then we found out we're having twins, and COVID happens. Twins is a revelation, because you realize I'm not going to be able to do anything for a while, and all the gyms were shutting down.
Yeah. So
what I did was I worked full-time managing my mate's restaurant through that whole 9-month period. It was a takeaway joint, so it was open throughout COVID. And I had one guy I was doing marketing for at the time. From there, I just told people about the results he was getting and did more and more and more. And I had about 6 digital marketing clients who I never really wanted, but it just kind of happened on the side. So I was doing like $5-6 grand a month on the side, just me. So that was fine. So when the babies were born, I saved up a bunch of money, took like 3 months off, made some websites for people, and then went all in on digital marketing and never worked a job again. So this was 2020. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was kind of just like a means to an end job.
Yeah.
Like while we're pregnant, while we're having this crazy first 6 months of having twins where you sleep in like 3 hours at a time, I was just kind of trying to get by until my next move. I was actually lined up to open another restaurant.
Yeah.
And then just didn't do it.
Yeah.
Because marketing started going better than I expected. And that was in kind of probably early 2021.
Yeah.
And then, now we're late 2023. I've never worked a job since then,
How cool. That's really cool.
It was very roundabout, but it started from coaching.
Yeah.
And then just being better at the marketing, making stuff look good side than the rest of it.
Yeah, beautiful.
And,
So talk to me, all right, so when you went all in, coming back to the topic of today, like what are some of the things that you did to, get started? Tell us, what are some of the things that you did that you found the most success out of when you were getting started?
So basically, the first thing I did, the first client happened organically, just through conversations. And I think I was doing sales for him. I was kind of like doing phone sales for him and a bit of marketing. And then I was like, can I just be your full-time paid marketer? And I was like, I'll do it for $2 grand a month. And he's like, yep. Oh, job. So I took that and I started literally just shifting the way I post on my personal Facebook page over to just talking about Facebook ads, doing the odd video, the odd results screenshot. And people just kind of started to notice a little bit. And that was the first thing. From there, it kind of trickled, the odd referral, the odd word of mouth sort of thing. And that's where I would start again, because we all have a list. And I think that's what Grant Cardone calls your power base or whatever. People who know, like, and trust you a little bit. And obviously it's a little bit diluted the way everyone just fucking adds anyone. Oh yeah, we swear on this show, by the way. Just adds
if
anyone.
Haven't worked out by now.
Yeah. But there's going to be a base of people who will start to see your content, notice what you're doing. And some people will ask, what are you doing? And so I went for the power base first. People who I'd known from the coaching space And if you're working B2B, that's a really great way to start. If you're working B2C, which is business to consumer, business to business, same sort of thing. If you have a product or a service you want to get out there, just start changing the way you post on your social media profiles just to reference it, and just do that in your own style. People will notice. They'll notice if you're doing something new, and they'll comment on it. And some people, mostly people will be supportive, and you'll get the odd wanker who's like, oh, fucking, scam, that sort of thing. And it's like, all right, Kev, how's Centrelink going, brother? Nothing wrong with being on Centrelink, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, people started to notice that.
Yeah.
And one of the next things I did was I actually started a podcast based around the marketing. And the reason I did that was because, one, I wanted to make more content around it. And two, I wanted a way to reach out to people who I wanted to work with and connect with them without the transparent first social media cold DM being like, hey, I noticed you're in the coaching space. How's life and business going? Emoji. And you get them and it just stinks. Yeah. And so when you can write to someone and say, hey, Alan, came across your page, man. I run a podcast about marketing. I'd love to have you on the show. Instant relationship, instant rapport.
Yeah. And they instantly open up as well.
Totally. Because you're offering them something.
Yeah.
I'll make you some free videos. It'd be really great to talk to you. It's a new show, but I'll do my best for you. And so I did that, and I just went ham on the podcast. And the first, I think you came in about almost 100 episodes in. I did like the first at least 80 by myself.
Yeah.
And it was just literally that. The podcast was my way of reaching out to people, cold DM, in a way that their walls went down rather than up. And that introduced me to a whole network of people, therefore making more content, more focus on the marketing zone, keep posting those little screenshots, and just doing a very, very simple job of working with people. I charge like half of what I charge now, if not less. Simple stuff, get the results for some, not for others, and just figured it out. And just working with people I knew and then expanding that base via the podcast and content. It was really simple.
All right, I want to break down what I hear. So you obviously told the story of it, but I want to sort of break down the elements that I was listening to. So the first thing is you had the first thing that I heard you do is you're documenting your process. So what I mean by documenting is you said you were using Facebook to just share results and share your journey along the way. And I think one of the things that people often make the mistake with, especially when they're starting out, is they try to be someone that they're not. And I definitely try to create a persona of, I've definitely fallen into that trap, because the thing is you want to have all of your shit appear in order for people to feel comfortable engaging you. But sometimes it's okay for that not to be the case, because it shows the realness and the rawness. And then it also shows the dedication of what you're willing to do for someone, because so much more is on the line. So for example, I don't know how many clients you have on your books today, but like if you only have 3 clients on your books instead of 30, for example, you will do way more for those 3 clients, if not that 4th one who jumps on, than potentially someone who does have, this big, large database or whatever the case is just, running a system and other things. And so there's pros and cons to everything. And where you may lack experience, you can also implement more care, more attention, more detail, and more, and let your prices sort of, reflect that as well.
Totally.
Which you also mentioned. So documenting your process along the way, like sharing, hey, I'm running Facebook ads. Hey, here's some results that we're getting. Yeah. And not trying to oversell it, just being super cool. The second thing you shared about is podcasting. Now, in the last episode we did on this podcast, we did this profile. And what I want to say is, obviously the podcasting may not work for everyone, but it works for you because you're sort of in the disc profile, you're in that influence sort of section where you love exposure. Like you personally, you're actually your behavioral style is built for the spotlight.
Sure.
Speaking up, leading from the front, etc. And that way, when you're speaking to someone, the podcast idea, even, I'll make some videos, I'll create some content, you get to, get some exposure, all the great benefits of being on a podcast, that then again puts, finds, it's a value add for people.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming that's how you started to build up not only exposure to the person directly, but to people in their networks. And then so that's then how you started to get into more networks, obviously started to build more relationships. But for someone else, that may be, at the end of the day, finding a way to add value to other people in a very valuable service-based way.
Yeah, it's just knowing what I didn't like that other people did, which is and this is just my own bias. I don't like receiving a very obvious cold DM. I never accept friend requests from people who I don't know, because why would you? Because you know what they want. Yeah. Right? I'm not at a point where I think that's going to improve my life and my network. Well, it probably was at one point, like, oh, I'll add this person and pitch them. And I also don't like certain styles of content. I don't really like the hand raising posts, that sort of thing. When I don't really like the random, coaches will say, just ask people what their favorite personal development book is, and then just pitch the people in the comments. It's all too slow for me. And at this point as well, a lot of this is built around the fact that I've got 2 little kids now. I don't have all the time in the world, and I'm not fucking Gary Vee who can just stay up all night. Yeah. I'm doing this to create a system that is relatively leveraged, and the podcast for me was a way of creating 40 minutes worth of content. Yeah. And I had a system to make 50 pieces of content from each podcast. Yeah. And that was leveraged for me. I didn't have to come up with stuff all the time. So this is the way I would do it now, and the way I did it with the time restraints, energy restraints you have of having young kids as well. If I was a single dude, probably very different.
Yeah. So coming back to the question. Yeah. How would you walk me through on how you would spend the first 90 days knowing what you know now?
Okay. First thing I would do, I would spend those 90 days working my day job. 100%. Every time I was starting a business, quitting my job was the worst thing I could do, because you lose your cash flow, your ability to invest, you start getting scared, you make your decisions emotionally rather than logically. You can easily handle 5 clients plus a full-time job. Easy. So that's the first thing I'd do. Keep your income source.
Yeah. Keep the cash flowing in.
Yeah. Yes. Don't scare your wife. Yeah. you know, I've done that enough times as well. Yeah. So when I built my marketing business, I had a full-time job in a restaurant. It was fucking hard. It was probably working 80 hours a week across the 2 things. But hey, presto, it was easy, you know, to handle it. That's number one. And I think that so many coaches have that bravado of just burn the boats, bro. Yeah. It doesn't work for everyone. No. So, and it's usually
I'll talk about that in my story.
Okay. Yeah, rock and roll. Yeah. Next one would be just to start to utilize the platforms you've got, which is your personal social media profiles, to talk about what you're doing. And if there's hesitancy around that and people judging you, the only way of getting past that is just doing it. Because firstly, most people don't care, enough to leave negative comments, that sort of thing. There's going to be enough people to support you and give you a nice thumbs up or a share or a like. That's great. And people will start to notice. So shift your content that you post from being just your everyday stuff to your everyday stuff plus, here's a video by my marketing company, or here's 3 things you shouldn't do when you're running Facebook ads. Yep. And then the third one is figure out a way to talk to people that works for you. Now, the podcast was really great for me. Some people, I've got friends who just kill it in organic DMs and Facebook groups, that sort of thing. And you, for example, use LinkedIn. You talk to people on LinkedIn.
I'll talk about LinkedIn and Facebook groups. Yeah,
exactly. So I think that your communication style needs to work for you. For me, podcasting is great because every man and his dog has a podcast right now. In this situation, me being the man, Alan being the dog. And
Poor Alan.
can we call this podcast Alex and the Dog? And,
I'd love to.
And then, yeah, I think that if you just are persistent with it and you have your time frame of let's see how much we can do in 6 months or in a year, rather than, oh, why am I not hitting the 10K months yet? You know, that kind of, just ignore it. Oh, God. I just get so annoyed.
That's a whole topic about just not worrying about the figures and not worrying about the bullshit. But anyway.
You've got to make money,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
But if you have the day job, you don't need to make money just yet. You need to build up your name and your confidence and that sort of thing. Yeah. So that's where I'd start. We could talk about paid ads later, but paid ads is not where you start. Yeah. You start by figuring out, and also just, should I have a niche or anything yet? I don't think you really need to have like a specific niche. You need to work with a bunch of different people in a service-based business to figure out what works and what doesn't. And let's say you get a bunch of builders, and the builders, you are really good working with them, but you can't get such great results for the hair salon and the tattoo studio. Just, okay, I work with builders now. And then you, like, To The Moon Digital is my second iteration of my marketing company. The first one was very broad. This one's very focused. Yeah. It's done way better. That's because I learned from the first iteration who I worked best with. That's coaches. And then here we are. So, yeah, that's what I would do. That's what I did, and that's what I would do again.
Love it.
I'll just do it faster this time.
Awesome. All right. So I'll share a little bit about, just off the back of what I was sharing before. It was probably, so I would say about 8 years before I left my full-time job to do what I'm doing today, I launched an app called Fire App. Now, it was off the back of some stuff. So I was getting heavily into
Fire App?
The Fire App. Yeah. Yeah. So I was getting heavily into Tony Robbins and all the personal development stuff and everything else as well. So I was getting heavily into all the personal development stuff with Tony Robbins, and I was doing some what was I doing? I was doing, I remember doing some sort of goals workshop, and it was to do with setting goals and visions and all this other stuff in different categories of your life, in your family, in business, in wealth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And I really I got so caught up in it. And I loved it. And it was just a little personal addiction to personal development and growth and everything else. And I had finished when I finished school, I did a graphic design course for a year and a half, got an advanced diploma in graphic arts. After I left, I wasn't that great. I didn't have the business acumen that I do today. So I ended up going into the corporate world, working for 2 different insurance companies. And then whilst I was at one of the insurance companies, I then had a situation where I just I realized that I'm not enjoying this. And so this is where the whole personal development thing came in. I designed the Fire App. I found a buddy of mine who could code it. It was going to cost me $20K, and I was like, I don't have $20K, but I know a credit card that does. Anyway, or I can go get a personal loan, and I know, I can make it happen. Yeah. And anyway, the long and short of it is, I went and borrowed this money. The worst part that I had to learn, that we'll talk about in another episode, is I didn't tell Jess, I didn't tell my wife until I'd gotten the money and it was in my account. And then instead of just going and spending it, I did somewhat the right thing. Probably not. She'd probably see this very differently. But the time I told her, look, I can go and take this money back and there wouldn't be any penalties. I could give it back and it's all done. However, this is my dream. This is my passion. And she just looked me up and down. She goes, fuck you. Go and do it now. But honestly, don't ever do this to me again. Yeah. So it wasn't the best way to go about it. Yeah. Anyway, fast forward, that app was a complete failure. And I did not, definitely it was a lesson for me on following, because I launched this app, I got it all coded, I launched it, and then I had a paid version for 99 cents, and I think a total of 14 people downloaded it.
Right.
I paid for it, right? So off my $20,000 investment plus time, energy, etc., made a total of $14.
$13.86.
Yeah, there you go. So not a great investment,
Not
right?
great. Not a good ROI.
But thereafter, I then learned I could have created a prototype for around $250, right?
Okay.
I could have then had a launch strategy because, like, once I developed it and designed it and launched it, I then had all these people give me great feedback about you should do it this way, but it was all designed and done. And so I learned about how I could have prototyped it better. I learned how I should have launched it better. You learn all your lessons after it's all said and done. So I've got this paying off this 20K debt, and I'm honestly quite like getting down on myself about it. And then so I'm 36 at the moment at the time of this recording. When I turned 30, the year I turned 30 was also the same year that my second child Oscar was born in June. And when he was born, I had an epiphany like the day after he was born. So we come back from the hospital. It's again, I'd gone from my 20s into my 30s. So it's already sort of like, where the fuck is life going? What am I doing? And at that point, I remember like sitting whilst mum's upstairs recovering from birth the day before. I'm sitting on the lounge with Oscar, brand newborn, looking into his eyes, and like most fathers going, oh, fuck, like, I just want to be the best possible version of me that I can be for you. And that lit a absolute fire up in me. And so from that point on, 18 months later, that I actually left my full-time job. So I was still working in a bank full-time, but I managed in that first 6 months, in the first 6 months of the 18 months, I managed to find a role where I could work from home.
Yeah.
This is all before COVID and everything else as well. I was very fortunate. So I found a position where I could work from home, which meant I could also manage my time a little bit better. By working from home, it meant that I'd literally, like, this was my routine. I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go for a walk.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd go for a walk for half an hour, come back, and then get started on my my day job, my 9 to 5 job, if you will, but I was starting at 4:30, obviously. Do as much as I can. Now, by 7:30, Jess was typically getting the kids out the door or getting them to school or daycare or whatever. Jess was also going to work. So I'd have a break between 4:30 to 7:30. I'd then come down, have a break, whatever. And then she's out the door by, let's say, 8 o'clock. And then I'd go back up. I would typically do an 8-hour day for this organizer, like for my 9 to 5. I would typically do an 8-hour day within roughly 4 to 5 hours. Just because you don't have the bullshit of talking to people, you just get work done. Again, I could close my eyes and do that job drunk if I needed to, right? Which, not that I did, but I could have. Anyway, that allowed me then from almost 9 o'clock, 9:30 onwards, I could do whatever the fuck I wanted. And this is where I used my graphic design skills to do logos, business cards, anything that would make money.
Yeah.
And for the time that I was working full time, I started running some ads. I did not know what I was doing. I picked up a couple of courses on how to run ads, how to make money doing these things. Did all of this stuff, and it's really interesting. There's a real estate agency in Sydney. Shout out to the guy. I'm sure he would be listening to this. He's a good mate of mine. So I won't name him by name. But there was a real estate agency who gave me an opportunity. Now, 12 months prior, he may or may not remember this, but 12 months prior, I actually pitched him on, the chatbots. So that was all the rage. I think, what year was that? It would have been end of 2017 or something along those lines, right? And I tried to pitch him, and he turned to me and he goes, Alan, I have more followers than you. I post more content than you. Why would I want to buy what it is that you're offering if I've got more business and more, social proof than what you can offer me? And I was like, he's got an absolutely fair point. So interesting. from that point, that lit even more of a fire up my ass around like just getting shit done and actually proving myself. And then 12 months later, after like running Facebook ads, building websites, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I then that year, like at the end of that year, so 12 months later from that offer, I then got an offer from him to come and work with him. Basically, as a work from, how would you say? It was a remote working situation where 50% of my time was working in his business, him and his business partner's business, in the real estate agency. And then I was able to take on other clients as long as they weren't in the real estate space.
What are you doing at this point? What are you offering them?
So I was running Facebook ads,
right?
Doing most of their marketing. Mostly their marketing, their letterbox drops, videos.
Yep.
I was creating social media content and a whole range of other things as well. And so that was my big opportunity because I was not making enough money to save up to exit my full-time job. So I loved your advice about like having that cash flow coming in because I had a mortgage and we had two kids at the time. So like
that gets expensive.
Yeah. Yes, correct. Yeah.
Far out.
So you can't just go and burn the boats. Like you've got to be smart about it. Anyway, when that happened, that's when I actually got to. So I was earning a substantial wage. Not actually, I shouldn't say substantial.
Flex.
I was earning enough to be able to cover my immediate needs and go out and build a business.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, so this was at the beginning of 2019. 6 months later, or within that 6 months, we moved from Penrith up to the Central Coast. And in that 6 months, I also convinced Jess to come and work with me. And, you know, we just sold our house. We're now renting on the Central Coast. And with the money that we made in equity, et cetera, like we're basically just going, look, we can go and buy a house, but let's just, if you're happy to, like, let's get started in the business. Let's build this out. And then, you know, that way you don't need to go and find a job. You can work with me. Now, that was good in theory, but it took us obviously longer. We're now back in the house, but it took us a lot longer to get back into a property and everything else anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I bet.
Some of the things that I did during that period of time, so I was doing social media, like coming back to your question, the main things that I was doing was social media marketing.
Yeah.
Social media marketing, running ads, and I was actually facilitating classes and teaching people on how to, you know, build a social media presence and things like that. I was super into Gary Vee. I was super into all of that stuff. And I was just sort of sharing what I was learning and people were sort of gravitating and just listening and everything else in between. So some of the things that I was doing that were working really, really well behind the scenes was LinkedIn outreach. So I was actually using LinkedIn. So I did have a Facebook group of my own. I think it was called Monetize Your Fire, actually. So
Monetize Your Fire, as in your passion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that's thinking back. So I would go to LinkedIn and I had some automation that I was using to reach out to certain professionals in certain industries, including coaches or, you know, whoever's looking to, you know, build their social media presence. I would send them an invitation to say, hey, I've got a Facebook group where we're talking about I'm teaching social media marketing, teaching all of these things. Would you like to be a part of it? Now, these are way back when, before there was 1,000 into, like, you know, like this is when Facebook groups were very new, where people were actually excited to join a Facebook group. So I built a Facebook group from 0 to 1,000 people in less than 6 months. It was super effective.
That is fast, yeah.
Yeah, super effective. Like, because I was in very, very early, before Facebook groups and hassling people with information became too spammy.
Before you could tag everyone in the group.
Yes, highlights. Fuck that. Anyway, so that worked really well. I was doing Facebook Lives, videos, and then every now and then I'd do an offer to come and work with me, and I'll show you like some of the stuff that I teach, like some methodology. But I was just doing lots and lots of value add. So the LinkedIn stuff was working, the Facebook group stuff was working, but I guess the biggest thing that worked when I first started is I followed my passion. Now, even coming back to the real estate agent, the thing that like we had to renegotiate this good, healthy like salary that I was on because they like, you know, certain things weren't working. Without going into extreme detail, I couldn't run Facebook ads because they weren't putting money on the card to run ads. And so I was stuck. But the thing that was working was the video. And so I kept moving into video content and just understanding more about what I like and what the offer. And then lo and behold, we came up with an offer to create 3 months worth of video content in a single day.
Yep.
I then had a client on a call, a lead or someone who I did end up working with say to me, hey, I need to borrow money to do your offer. Can we do 6 months worth of video content? And like, let's just do the second day of filming in another couple of months' time. I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That came from a client. And then so that idea of setting a longer term relationship then now became the basis of my offer, is creating 6 months worth of video content and filming it all in 2 days. And so that's how I sort of started. But I remember some of the things that I did on top of the LinkedIn stuff and on top of using LinkedIn, I was running workshops. Workshops was a really cool way of like getting people in person and you know, just teaching and educating and then putting an offer out at the end. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I did the best, I think more so than anything else, is I used to send people, I used to go on someone's, like I can still name clients who I picked up through this process. So when I first started, I'd go onto LinkedIn, not using any automation. I'd find someone, I'd go, all right, this person looks interesting, especially like there's coaches. I think coaches are probably the biggest one. So I'd go on their profile, then have a look at their website, then have a look at their socials, and then I would record like the equivalent of a Loom video going through everything and where we can help, right? Hey, I can see that you've got all these things. I wanted to first introduce myself. My name's Alan, and I want to take some time to show you some things, not only things that you can do on your own, but things that we can help with. And it was a super, super valuable thing, right? It wasn't like, there wasn't a hard sell. It was very value add driven. So I'd tell them things that they could do, like fix up wording. Hey, there's a mistake here. There's some broken links, just so you know. Choose to do with it what you will. But there's also some things that we can help with if you ever do decide, you know, to make that decision. And people were just amazed by like the fact that my face is there. I was adding value.
Yeah.
They didn't like, and also the fact that someone's coming in to offer to just look after these things. And as long as it all made sense, like I still have a number of clients who I picked up as a result of this process, and it was super effective. And I actually, you know what, at one stage, what's it called? I should have written it down before we started the podcast, but there used to be like it's not Yellow Pages. There was sort of like a discount website where you could like go onto this website and it'll show you discounts, or like, you know, let's say for example, a Flip Out, like you can go on and Flip Out has like a deal, or Groupon.
Groupon.
Yeah. So I used to go on Groupon and find people who are advertising on Groupon. Instead of going to LinkedIn, I'd go to Groupon, and then I'd find people who are advertising on Groupon, then have a look at their website, and then tell them about how they haven't got a Facebook pixel and all this other stuff, things that they needed to be able to, like, you're advertising on Groupon and you're not getting the most out of it. And these are the things that we can help you with. And I remember picking up clients out of that as well.
I bet. Groupon pitch.
Yeah.
That's next level. What I can see from you doing that process is great. That's a little bit like my podcast process, which is, it's a very transparent cold outreach.
Yeah.
But it's the transparency and the value that's
The
helping
value is the key.
Yeah, but rather than people just pretending they want to be your mate when they don't. And like, hey, you know, looks like you got a nice dog. You know, that the kind of stuff that gurus tell you to do. You actually reach out saying, we can help you do this.
Yeah. here's some missing pieces that you can do,
Yeah.
but here's some things that we can help with if you wanted to explore it. Yeah.
And so much effort gone into that from you.
Yeah.
I mean, from their point of view, maybe it takes you 10 minutes. But rather than just a templated DM, it's overly enthusiastic and slimy. It makes
with
so
some
much sense.
emojis. Yeah.
Oh, the more emojis, the better.
The more
emojis build trust.
the slimier.
We can.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, babe. I've started working.
Hello,
with
dear.
This great. Hello, dear.
Oh, that's the
I
best
know.
one.
Greetings. I've started working with this great nutrition company. I think you'd love it. I think that honestly, that the biggest one I've taken is, well, Groupon's genius, but keeping your job whilst figuring out creative ways of outreaching to people.
Yeah.
That's basically what we both have in common there.
Because at the end of the day, business is just solving problems. Like, you're in business to solve problems. And the more, like, if you, like, I think I got the idea from, I can't remember who it was, but they talked about where are your clients currently spending money, or where do you find, what communities are your clients already a part of? And that's where I was like, oh, Groupon, like they're already advertising. So let's go and see, like, just go and do a little audit, social media audit, share some things that are working, are not, and go from there. And then you could say I've done the equivalent, especially with more so on LinkedIn, where I would jump on someone's profile and then look at like their videos and look at and share some of the things that we can create for them if they look like, some people are looking to hire better quality staff. Some people are looking to increase their leads. Some people are looking to, do a whole bunch of different things. And it's just finding the best possible thing that we can do in, with what we do and offer at the same time. So value add. I think it's the key, and the key, especially in today's day and age, is making it as personable as possible as well.
Yeah, and not AI personalization.
Yeah.
Real personalizing it. Because in our line of work, in service-based business, you don't need 1,000 clients. You need 15 and you're good.
Yeah.
So, and you're going to be working with these people for a long time very closely. Yeah. So it's not like selling them a t-shirt and then moving on. It's like you got to trust and know these people and get along with them. So you may as well put a little extra effort.
Yeah.
We can get it, like another episode down the line, we'll get into how we get clients right now.
Yeah.
Very labor intensive, but conversion rates like 98%.
Yeah.
Once they're in, so man, I think to summarize what we've both said, because I think we both followed similar paths there and ended up in similar places. We both kept our day jobs. We both started creating content in our own ways that worked and building a community based off of people we knew, trying a bunch of different offers and arrangements, like you with the real estate company, me with all my different levels of service. I used to have all these different levels, figuring out which ones work best, and then ending up going down one path. And once you have that one offer, you just go and tell people about it.
Yeah.
With an outreach that makes sense to you. And while that's not particularly tangible advice, I think that being too concrete and steadfast, and this is the only way in your advice, that's how people fail as well. Because then people end up bouncing around 7 different books and influencers and courses and saying, oh, this is the only way. Oh, no, I've got to do it this way. No, Sam Oven said this and Andrew Tate said this and whatever. Like, having it's got to be flexible, and it's not going to work if you just definitely model people's systems, but don't just follow one step by step, because that's it's not going to be sustainable for you.
I think just to finish off, like there are some notes that I've written down here. Like, sometimes the best form of payment can actually be social proof as well.
100%.
Like, sometimes there is definitely people, like if you can manage to work with someone who's at the very top of an industry, everyone else will watch. And I'm very, very grateful now to have a couple of those. I don't want to call them I used to call them elephant, but they're just very influential people who are the authority of a particular market, a very niche market, but the authority of a market. And I would suggest that you're probably the digital marketer for coaches, and you've worked with some pretty big names yourself as well, right? And so this is where I think it's worth sometimes getting testimonials or case studies or social proof of that work is sometimes just as just as valuable. Like sometimes it's more valuable than the payment you can receive if you know how to use it effectively. And then lastly, like always, I think it's important to like you said, the reason I was so happy to hear you say keep your day job, the first thing, is because when you can take out the financial emotion of like, fuck, I need to make money, where you can just make sure it's value add. Like I'm going to price myself accordingly to the services that I'm going to offer, and it's going to be a fair exchange rather than like I need to sell this person, I need to take upfront payment or whatever it is. Yeah. You're not putting like so much tension on sell or die mentality. Yeah. You can easily take your time, be as valuable as possible, because that value and that patience, Gary Vee always talks about patience, that patience initially is going to pay you dividends in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years and beyond. Like I have people who I spoke to in year 1 of business who are now working with me in year 5. Yep. And it's because I wasn't a dick or an asshole from the very get-go, you know? I've definitely I've lost my cool and things like that, but price yourself accordingly. Understand that sometimes work in the form of social proof can be one of the best things for you to build up your reputation. Because now, and you know, almost going into year 5 of my business, I can now, trying to say in this as humble as possible, I don't like when a potential lead comes to me and says, convince me to work with you. I actually respectfully say, hey, I'm not someone to like try and hard sell anyone on our services. Like I feel like the people who get the best results already believe in our process. Yeah. And so I'm happy to answer any questions, and I can definitely tell you the benefits, but I'm not going to try and hard sell you or try and convince you because you're not convinced. If you're not convinced, I'd respectfully like to leave you with some more information, go and have a look at some of our testimonials. Yeah. But I don't need to convince anyone to work with us, because the people who get the best results find us, believe in us, want some more information around detail and some commitments outlined, and then we get started. Yeah. And then that's like, they are the best working relationships that we have.
100%. Convince me to work with you is such a red flag.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next week. Yeah. on the next episode of Dadvertising. I hope that's been valuable, guys. Covered a lot of ground. Yeah. A lot of ground. And I think that within that, there's going to be, there definitely were some nuggets of just tangible gold that I've learned from you, and you've maybe learned from me.
I've definitely learned from you.
And
but no, I think it's just pulling out it's things that we already knew, but it's just pulling out like the value add. Like I love the fact that you, like, even your podcast today, you're still going. Like my podcast isn't still going. Like I still do it every now and then, but you're like, what episode are you up to now?
140 something.
Yeah. Dude, like the commitment required to get to 140 episodes is phenomenal. Like, and the amount of people who pull out halfway through and all those other things is, you know, and I'm one of them, right? But what you're doing, and the commitment and the joy and the love of it speaks louder than the numbers and everything else as well. So well done.
Well, thank you, Alan. Here's to 240 episodes of Dadvertising.
Yes.
Hell yeah, brother.
Fuck yes.
Let's do it. Starting with next week's episode, managing emotions in business and family. Very interested to get into that one, because we've touched on a lot of stuff today that will be relevant in next week's episode. We encourage all of our listeners to start in episode 1 and move through chronologically. Yes. Because we'll learn from each episode previously. So thanks so much for being here today, guys. Alan, amazing. Amazing from you.
Thank you.
Not bad from you, Alan.
So if you're listening and you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button and all those other good things. Again, before we finish, if you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, make sure you reach out, leave a comment. Yep. Positive ratings only.
Only positive.
Fuck off with your shitty negative ones. They can go somewhere else to other podcasts.
Take that to the post office.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Just positive ones. Thank you for listening, and see you on next week's episode.
Peace out.
Ciao.